All right, you know what time it is? Yeah, Rock Duck time. Neil Ratnar Rock Duck here with a story for you. Okay. This past Friday was the 76th birthday of musician, singer, songwriter, and composer Gary Wright. Known for his work with the band Spooky Tooth, but best known for his songs Dreamweaver and Love is Alive. What you may not know is that Gary and George Harrison were good buddies. And today, I thought I would tell you a few things about Gary and his relationship with George that you might not know. But as usual, a little background first. So, Gary grew up in New Jersey, where he became a child actor who made his debut at 7 years old on the TV show Captain Video and his Video Rangers. Anybody remember that show? He also appeared on TV and radio commercials, and he eventually got the role as Florence Henderson's son in the Broadway musical Fanny. Now, Wright spent 2 years with the production and even got to perform with Florence on the Ed Sullivan Show. Now, during his high school years, Wright led a few different rock and roll bands, one of which got a record deal, but their single went nowhere. Now, this is the part of the story that I really relate to. Gary's other dream, like my other dream, was to be a doctor, and he enrolled at the College of William and Mary in Virginia as a pre-med student, finished that, got into downstate medical school in Brooklyn, went there for a year, was interested in psychology, so decided to go and finish his studies in Germany. But once he got to Germany, he gave up on the idea of being a doctor, formed a band, and toured Europe. And it was in Oslo, Norway in 1967 on a gig where Gary's band was supporting Traffic that he met Chris Blackwell, president of Island Records. And Traffic was on the Island label, that's why Chris was there. Now, Blackwell was impressed with Wright, and he invited Wright to London to join a band which soon changed its name to Spooky Tooth, with Wright as joint lead vocalist and Hammond organ player. Wright did a number of albums with Spooky Tooth this first time around. He went back and reformed Spooky Tooth later on with none other than Mick Jones from Foreigner. That's another story. But at any rate, this first time around, they were pretty critically acclaimed, had some commercial success, especially with the album Spooky 2, but Gary left the band in '70 to begin a solo career. Now, at the same time, he became an in-demand session player, and through his friend Klaus Vormann, Wright was invited to play piano on George Harrison's 1970 triple album, All Things Must Pass. Now, they became musical collaborators and worked together again on the studio follow-up, 1973 smaller scale, Living in the Material World, which, by the way, Gary enjoyed much more, didn't love Phil Spector's Wall of Sound big productions on the earlier album. He really enjoyed working on this second album because it was Klaus Vormann, it was him, it was Eric Clapton, and I think it was Jim Gordon, I forget who else, but it was a small set of people that created the rhythm section. They didn't have that big production stuff, and Gary liked it much better. And he also co-wrote, if you believe, for Harrison's 1979 self-titled album, and he played keyboards on George's '87 comeback smash, Cloud 9. The two really became good friends. But more than that, they did become good friends who shared thoughts and ideas, and it was this sharing that ultimately resulted in Wright's hit song Dreamweaver. Now, according to Gary, in 1972, my friend George Harrison invited me to accompany him on a trip to India. A few days before we left, he gave me a copy of the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. A little aside here. Great book, man. If you've never read it and you're looking for something spiritual, it's one of the basic reference books that you need to read. All right, back to Gary, quoting, "Needless to say, the book inspired me deeply, and I became totally fascinated with Indian culture and philosophy. While reading more of the writings of Yogananda, I came across a poem called God, God, God. Now, one of the lines in the poem referred to the idea of the mind weaving dreams, and the thought immediately occurred to me, weaver of dreams, dream weaver." I wrote it down in my journal of song titles and forgot about it. Several months passed, and one weekend, while in the English countryside, I picked up my journal and came across the title Dreamweaver. Feeling inspired, I picked up my acoustic guitar and began writing. The song was finished in an hour. The lyrics and music seemed to have flowed out of me as if written by an unseen source. Well, the tune did pretty well. Went on to sell over 2 million copies. And I'm sure you've heard it in recent times because it's still a staple of classic rock radio. Now, Harrison and Wright remain close. And on the day George died in 2001, Gary happened to be in the studio. And he remembered a song he and George had written in 1971. And according to Wright, he was over at my apartment. I wrote most of the lyrics, he did the music. I put it in the back of my mind. The actual day that George passed, I was in the studio, and I decided to memorialize that day by recording the song. Amazing, right? Gary went on to say, "George was and is one of my dearest friends, and I always admired his creativity and sincerity. He was a true genius and probably one of the most creative people I'd ever met." How about that, right? Gary Wright, George Harrison, happy birthday, Gary. That's my story for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, but you know me, I have to give one little promo for my book. Still available, autographed copies on my website, neilratnerrockdoc.com. Also, Saturdays at 3 o'clock, listen to me on WDST. I do a little This Week in Rock where I give you these kind of detailed stories, and I can use music because I'm on the radio. All right, that's it for today. I'll be back with another story next week, and of course, all my posts during the week. All right, that's it. Neil Ratner Rock Doc. Have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.